Hey there everybody, and welcome to my review of the all-new Skoda Scala. Now I think it's fair to say that Skoda has had a consistently strong model lineup over the last few years, with the likes of the Citigo city car, the Octavia family hatchback and 7-seater Kodiaq SUV. However, there have been two models in the Czech brand's lineup that have failed to reach the same levels of success, and that has been the Rapid Spaceback and Rapid Hatchback. Now, the Rapid Hatchback was more of a baby Octavia in its appearance and failed to live up to the same success as its big brother. However, the Rapid Spaceback did achieve some success, especially here in the UK, thanks to its more conventional hatchback layout, good interior space and keen pricing. However, when pitted against rivals, the Rapid Spaceback failed to come out on top. So for 2019, Skoda have ditched those two models and replaced it with this, the all-new Skoda Scala. And as you can tell from its look, it's definitely replacing the more successful Rapid Spaceback. So I've had the Skoda Scala for a week and I'm going to answer three important questions. Number one, is it better than the Rapid Spaceback which it is replacing? Number two, should you consider the Rapid Spaceback if you're looking at cars such as the Ford Focus, Kia Ceed and even a Volkswagen Golf? And number three, should you consider the Skoda Scala if you're looking at cars such as a Seat Ibiza, Volkswagen Polo and even a Ford Fiesta? So stick around to find out. When it comes to the exterior styling of the Skoda Scala, I'm going to be honest, I actually really like it. It's got quite a strong Audi A3 Sportback look about it. Now if you go for a couple of optional extras, you can definitely make your Scala stand out. So firstly, we've got the exterior styling pack, and that gives you the full LED lights, glass roof, glass tailgate and scrolling indicators. How very Audi-esque. But also if you get a contrasting paint job like this car's got here with the moon white metallic, it definitely gives the Scala a bit more of an impact and presence about it. However, if you want your Scala to look even more sporty, there is a Monte Carlo version coming soon, and that gets its unveiling at the 2019 Frankfurt Motor Show. But I have to say, it is actually quite a distinctive car, and if you look at the back of the car, thanks to the magic of editing, so here at the back of the Skoda Scala you can clearly see that glass tailgate as part of the exterior styling pack. I also think Skoda are paying a bit of homage to the Rapid Spaceback because in SE Sport trim that car also came with a glass tailgate. Now it's a little bit unorthodox, but whilst we're back here, shall we have a little look at the boot capacity? So once you get the boot open, and I will mention that you can get the tailgate powered, and it'll be the only car in its class to do so, it unveils a gargantuan 467 litres of space, which completely obliterates every car in its class, and even most in the class above. This just feels like a classic Skoda in that sense, in that you get an awful lot of metal for your money. Now it's not devoid of features also. You get a couple of shopping hooks, a 12-volt socket, some tie downs and netting, and also on this car we've got a space saver spare wheel. You can also go for an optional variable boot floor, which means you actually have no load lip whatsoever, and when you put the seats down you have an almost flat load bay. However, this car hasn't got that, so you have got a little bit of a load lip, and if you do put the seats flat you do get a little bit of a lip at the base of the seats, so just be careful, especially when loading large heavy items. But I am just completely and utterly blown away by the boot capacity of the Scala. It just, well, it's completely and utterly surprised me, and as you can see at the bottom of the screen there, I've actually put down its rivals' boot capacities just to show you how much the Scala beats them. So yeah, I think so far so good with the Scala, and I think it's time now we have a look at the inside. Sat in the front of the Skoda Scala, you are greeted by a very modern looking dashboard, and I have to say to the Czech brand, bravo and well done, because this has been a long time coming. That's not to say I've disliked previous Skoda interiors, but they've always felt that the emphasis was on functionality, ergonomics and actually just being safe in that interior design. So it's great to see Skoda take the plunge and go with a very modern look. Now the infotainment screen has actually been moved up the dashboard and has a very floaty effect up here, so it might not be to everyone's taste style wise. It's very much like that from a Mercedes A-Class. However, as you're driving along you will find that you don't actually have to take your eyes too far off the road in order to look at the screen, but also when you're actually navigating the menu system you don't actually have to move too far in order to kind of access the screen and all the buttons on there. So from a safety perspective, especially when you're driving, that's a very big plus. Now compared to the Rapid Spaceback as well, interior quality has also gone up market. We've got soft touch plastics on top of the dash and the door. However, from this point downwards it is actually all hard plastics, but they do feel of a good quality. It's also a very comfortable place to sit, and I think there's actually a new design to the chairs in here, and I thought the emphasis on the shoulders might actually pinch on the back of me here, but actually no, it's very comfortable. There's plenty of adjustment in the seats and also in the steering, where you've got both rake and reach adjustment, so that is an added bonus. Cubby spaces, of course, yes, there's going to be plenty of them. We've got decent sized door bins, but they're not lined with fabric, so anything you chuck in there is going to rattle around a bit. You've also got a little extra cubby space here next to the steering wheel, 2 cup holders next to the handbrake along with a 12-volt socket, a tiny little cubby space under the armrest, and it does give away the fact that the Scala is based on the Volkswagen Polo and not the Skoda Octavia. You've got a decent sized glove box, and that's because this being the SE, you don't get sat-nav as standard, so it's not taken up by any SD card holders, which is quite a nice welcome addition. I will point out, yes, you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on the infotainment system. And then finally, there's just this big tray area in front of the gear lever, and it's absolutely huge. I actually think Skoda have been listening to Fabia and Rapid owners who've said that the area in front of the gear lever is not usable enough. And it's absolutely huge. You can chuck a couple of phones in there, your keys, spare change. It's just really, really usable. And you also get 2 USB sockets. However, they're not standard USB sockets. They're actually USB-C or USB 3, whichever ones they are. So if you do purchase a Skoda Scala, make sure at your local dealership they do provide you with an adapter, so therefore you can plug your phone in with a USB charger, so just be aware of that. But overall, it's absolutely lovely in here. This is a brilliant place to sit, and I'm very proud of Skoda for actually taking the plunge with this modern design. Now, there is an optional extra in here, which is the black dot decorative insert on here, because usually it would be silver, and I also really like it, and I like the red bar that goes across. Yeah, Skoda, you've got yourself another winner in terms of comfort and usability. But that's enough of the front. Let's go have a sit in the back of the Scala. Sat in the back of the Skoda Scala, you finally get to see the car's unique selling points start to unveil themselves. So that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got a huge amount of knee room, and headroom is really good as well. I've actually had a passenger who's 6'3" sat behind me in the Scala, and they had no complaints regarding rear passenger space. But I would say consider the Scala as more of a 4-seater than a 5-seater, because this centre seat is actually quite uncomfortable. There's a severe transmission hump coming through the floor, the centre seat is also raised, and the actual back support sticks forward a little bit, so it's not the most comfortable. If you see this more of a 4-seater, you can easily get 4 adults in the Scala with ease. But apart from that, it's absolutely fine. Now with that glass roof, of course, it's really light and airy back here, and it's absolutely wonderful. But even if you didn't have the glass roof in, you've got some very big windows that go all the way down when you open them. And there's also a couple of additional windows in the C-pillars to aid with a bit of extra light and visibility. Practicality is also pretty good as well. We've got some decent sized door bins, and there are some airplane style pockets behind the seats. We've also got Isofix supports on the outer seats, and in typical VW Group fashion, they come with clips that are very easy to lose, so just be aware of that. But if you want an added bonus, that front passenger seat also comes with Isofix support as standard. So that's a huge bonus for you if you need to get a child seat in the front passenger seat. But also finally, you get a couple of additional vents here just to blow a bit of cold air back here, and you can easily tell that there's a little gap underneath for a couple of extra USB ports, and you can get those as an optional extra. So yeah, this is a hugely spacious car, considering again that this is based on the Volkswagen Polo platform, the MQB A0. So this is absolutely brilliant. So that's the rear passenger space done. Let's go have a... So once you get driving in the Skoda Scala, first impressions are actually really good. After only a couple of minutes of driving, I've noticed 3 big things about the Scala. Number 1, it's a very comfortable car to drive. Number 2, it's a very relaxing car to drive. And number 3, it's an easy car to drive. Visibility is also really good. We've got some reasonably thin A-pillars, so you don't find yourself looking around at junctions. And if you're looking over your shoulder in the C-pillar, there are some huge windows in there, which actually means you don't get much of a blind spot. It's just a very comfortable car to sit in. As I mentioned earlier, there's plenty of adjustment in the seats and also in the steering wheel, so getting the ideal driving position is easy. First impressions on the Scala are incredibly positive, and there's no reminder of the rapid spaceback which it replaces, and that's a huge positive indeed. Although the Scala is replacing the rapid spaceback, it's actually based on the new MQB A0 platform and is the first car from Skoda to use it. Other cars in the Volkswagen group which have made use of that platform are the Volkswagen Polo and Seat Ibiza hatchbacks, but also the Volkswagen T-Cross and Seat Arona crossovers. And you'll find Skoda's version of that crossover with the Kamiq coming out later in 2019. Again, boasting class-leading rear passenger legroom and luggage space. So if you're after a practical little crossover, definitely wait for that one. So at the time of recording, there are 3 trim levels to choose from: the S, SE and SEL. Yes, I did mention the Monte Carlo, but you can't order that just yet, and it hasn't had its unveiling yet, which will be at the 2019 Frankfurt Motor Show next month. However, out of the 3 trim levels you can choose from, I would definitely recommend the SE, as you just tend to get everything that you need. So you get rear parking sensors, air conditioning, you've got the 8-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You've also got cruise control and lane assist as standard, as well as front assist. So there's actually a real good amount of standard equipment. Of course, if you want to have a few more toys to play with, then you can spec up to the SEL, but of course that will cost a little bit more. When it comes to engine choices in the Scala range, well, if you go for the entry-level S, there's only one petrol engine to choose from, and it's a 1-litre 3-cylinder turbocharged unit producing just 95 brake horsepower. It's another reason again to avoid the entry-level S and go straight for the SE or SEL, because there's a bit more variety when it comes to engine choices. So with those other 2 trim levels, you can get the same 1-litre 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol, but producing 115 brake horsepower, and you can have that mated to either a 6-speed manual or 7-speed DSG. There's also a diesel available, which is a 1.6-litre unit producing 95 brake horsepower. But the engine I've got here is the 1.5-litre TSI, and that produces 148 brake horsepower. And again, you can have either a 6-speed manual or 7-speed DSG, which I have here. And the 1.5, it's a lovely engine. It's nice and quiet. It feels very refined. You can barely hear it. And it's a nice, capable performer. But it doesn't actually feel like I've got 148 brake horsepower under my right foot. If anything, it kind of feels a lot less. And if you really want to get the most out of that engine, you've got to put your foot down and then get the most out of it. And that's why, personally, I would recommend the 1-litre 3-cylinder TSI with the 115 brake. With that 115 brake horsepower, you've got all the power you really need. Don't forget that that engine also powers the Scala's big brother, the Skoda Octavia. Secondly, being a 3-cylinder, you'll have that 3-cylinder hum, and it has a nice characterful noise to it, so it'll actually be very nice to live with, and it's not exactly going to be intrusive into the cabin. It will still be a very refined engine. And also, just save yourself a little bit of money. It's also a very economical engine, so it will be the best of both worlds for you in terms of driving around town and any long distance journeys you do. So what's the ride and handling like in the Skoda Scala? Well, ride-wise, it's absolutely brilliant. Skoda have really worked their magic to make sure that the Scala can ride well, and it does not feel in any way, shape or form like the rapid spaceback it's replacing. It just feels like a much more sophisticated and grown-up car. And as a result, I kind of wouldn't put this against the Ibiza and the Volkswagen Polo, but more pit it against the Ford Focus, Kia Ceed and Volkswagen Golf as a result. It just deals with the bumps and imperfections much better than those smaller cars. Yes, some of the bumps you can hear resonate into the cabin, but it's a small price to pay. Overall, it rides incredibly well, and it's actually surprisingly refined in here. There's very little to no wind noise coming off the wing mirrors, and the only noise that really intrudes into the cabin is a bit of tyre roar. That's really about it. It's actually very quiet in here, and you can tell that Skoda's been doing some homework with making the car very efficient. So on the front of the car, in the front corners on the bumper, we've actually got a couple of real vents, and they're designed to kind of filter air across the side of the car so it doesn't cause any additional drag. And this is also the first Skoda you can buy with aerodynamic alloys. Basically, it's the same alloys you can get on the car, but with these black fins on them to help smooth the airflow over the side of the Scala. And what that means is this is actually a very efficient car to drive. So fair play to Skoda to actually taking the time and effort to really hone the Skoda Scala and make it the best car it can be. Now, when it comes to the handling, this you could say is a bit of a weak link on the Scala, because it is very easy to drive. The steering is nice and light, but it's not the most communicative. So sometimes you can't quite feel what the front wheels are doing, but it does go through the motions really well and does the job of steering the car very well. It's again a minor setback on what is actually a really brilliant car. It's in no way sporty, I will mention that now. There's no way this is as fun as a Ford Focus or the Seat Ibiza to drive. This is just designed to get you from A to B in as comfortable and as relaxing way as possible. And Skoda have really hit the nail on the head with that one. Now, I know I've been singing the praises of the Skoda Scala, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you about some of the little niggles I've encountered with my time with the car. So firstly, underneath the sun visor, we've got a vanity mirror, but no vanity light. That's something you would expect on a car like this. Also, the infotainment screen is a typical Volkswagen Group infotainment screen, so it is prone to smudging. And also, there's no physical buttons on the outside of the screen for the shortcut, so you have to kind of look and make sure that you're actually pressing them, otherwise you could easily miss them. But after time you will get used to where they are, and I just tend to rest my fingers on top and use my thumb. It just seems to be much easier that way. Now, we've also got the armrest on the Scala. Now, I'm very happy that the Scala comes with an armrest. Most cars in this class tend to come with it as an optional extra or high up in the spec range, but it is actually set a little bit too low for a long journey. I'd be kind of sat like this on a long journey, and there's no ratchet to kind of lift it up so you can actually rest your arm on it, which is a little bit disappointing. But it also slides forward, which is nice, unless you've got anything in the cup holders, in which case you might knock the top of your drinks or your coffee cup, whatever's in there, so just be aware of it. Now, that's actually pretty much it in terms of niggles with the Scala. Everything else is absolutely fine. And as I say that, there's actually one more niggle. It's the indicator noise as you use it. You see, I think Skoda have actually changed the sound for it, and it feels very much like a sound from a Peugeot or Citroen S car. And I don't want to replicate that noise, but that kind of hollow... I know that sounds terrible and very bad of me, but it just sounds a little bit different, and it did remind me straight away of a PSA Group car. But that is, again, a very minor little thing, because this is an absolutely brilliant car all round. Honest to God, it is. So what are my thoughts on the Skoda Scala? Well, if you've made it this far, I think you know what the outcome is going to be. The Skoda Scala is an absolutely brilliant car. I was so afraid that this was just going to be a rehashed rapid spaceback, but the Scala is so much more. It feels grown up, it feels very refined, comfortable, and it actually shows that Skoda have really worked on this car. They really want this to compete in two different segments. If you are looking for a Volkswagen Polo, Ford Fiesta, or a Kia Rio, you have to have a look at the Scala. Also, if you were looking at a Volkswagen Golf, Ford Focus, and a Kia Ceed, again, you have to look at the Scala, because the value for money is absolutely brilliant, and you get a huge amount of car for your money. The way I would tag the Scala is that it is a Golf-sized car for Polo money. And in that respect, this feels like a good old-fashioned Skoda, because you get a huge amount of car for your money. Bravo to Skoda, you've done an incredible job with this, and I cannot wait for the new Skoda Kamiq, the crossover based on the Arona and T-Cross, out later in the year, because I think Skoda could have another winner on their hands. Hats off to you, Skoda, you've done an absolutely brilliant job. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the all-new Skoda Scala. As always, please hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and also hit the bell notifications icon to let you know when I bring out a new video. If you've got any questions about the Scala and my time with it, of course put them down in the comment section below the screen. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and I do advise you follow on there for additional content including still images and live videos. It kind of gives you a behind the scenes look of what AutoBears does. But guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this video, because as the sun is setting, I am really enjoying my time with the Scala. In fact, I am feeling so sad that I have to take this car back tomorrow, and I genuinely mean that. This has probably been one of the biggest surprises of 2019. I was expecting just a regular family hatchback with the Scala with a bit more interior space, but the Scala is so much more. And again, hats off to Skoda for really putting the effort in. They have come up with another winner, so fair play to them. But guys, have yourselves a wonderful time, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. So take care and bye bye.